Sometimes God asks us to do something that seems almost impossible, something difficult for us to do, and we have a decision to make. Are we going to try to do it and try to accomplish it the best we can in our own strength and our own plan? Are we going to decide that it's too much for us and we're not even going to try to attempt it because we're afraid to fail and so we do nothing? Or are we going to take the time to ask God how He wants us to accomplish it? What are the steps? What's the process? What's the strategy? And I think really that's what we need to do. We need to go to God and ask Him for a plan. Once I was in Kazakhstan and we were working with some teachers, and they were just kind of brainstorming and trying to decide on some strategies for reaching kids in their community. It's a difficult community, and the government makes it almost impossible to reach out. But they had a heart and a passion to reach kids, and so they were thinking of ideas on what they could do to attract kids and start to develop a relationship with kids in their community. Some of the young people were thinking of ideas like, we could have a game day, and we can invite kids and play all kinds of creative games with them. We could go out on the street and hand out maybe sandwiches that we've made and offer some simple food to kids and families. Maybe we could give them some gifts or some information about an activity or a concert or something. And they kept thinking of all these ideas to make relationship with kids in the community. And each time they came up with an idea, you could see these two women sitting in the back of the room, two Kazakh women in the back of the room. They folded their hands, they had scowls on their face, and they were shaking their heads no, and then they were saying these words, impossible. It's impossible. The government will not allow this. We tried this before. People will take advantage of you. You don't have enough money for this. And every time they said one of those reasons, the young people just started to listen to them and think maybe it is impossible. Maybe we can't do this. And you could just see faith draining out of the room. I knew I had to stop this. And we had to try to come back to a place of having faith for what God was asking them to do. And I remembered in my suitcase, I had this little block of wood and some nails. And so what I did was I put one of the nails into the block of wood and stood it on the table and then asked for a volunteer to come up and help me. And I asked them to balance one nail on top of this nail. That seemed pretty straightforward. Sometimes God asks us to do something and it seems fairly easy. It's fairly straightforward. I think I can do that. And so out of obedience, we'll do what seems best to us. And sometimes they'll balance this head to head on top or carefully lay it across the head of the nail, and they'll see some success and be really kind of proud of themselves that they did it fairly quickly. And that's kind of how we are. God asked us to do something, so I just did it, and it worked, and I was obedient. But then I'll say to them, let's try something different. I want you to try to balance two nails on top of this one. Almost always you can see them thinking, and what do you think they do? Yeah, the first thing they do is exactly what they did before. Put the first one head to head or laid across, and then try to figure out how to add the second one. Sometimes we do that with God too. When God asks us to do something and it seems a little bit bigger, we go back to what worked before. We want to try that again and maybe modify it and see if it'll work. But as you can tell by looking at some of the miracles and battles of the Old Testament, some of the things that Jesus did as he was healing people or teaching, didn't often do the same thing twice. Almost always God would do something new, something different. And so when God asks us to do something a little bit bigger, something we've never done before, we can try what we've done before. We can try to have our own ideas, and it's not always going to work. So then I'll stop them as they're trying to figure out this, and I'll say, let's make it interesting. Let's do 6 nails. Let's try to balance 6 nails on top of one. You can see them, their eyes get really big, and they're trying to figure out, how in the world am I going to do this? Everybody in the room is leaning forward, watching to see, what are you going to do? They're trying different things. And while they're doing that, I said, there is a strategy. God is not going to ask you to do something that he doesn't have a plan for. He doesn't have a process for. He doesn't have a strategy for. If he's going to ask you to do it, he's going to show you how. He's going to give you everything you need to do it. So when I ask you to do this, I wouldn't do it unless there was a strategy. You see, there are a couple of verses that are really important to remember. Isaiah 55:8 and 9, where God himself says, "For my thoughts, they're not like your thoughts, and neither are my ways like your ways, declares the Lord." See, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. And then in Isaiah 46:10, God says, "I make known the end from the very beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come." And God says, "And my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please." See, God will do what he asks us to do. He will accomplish that task, but his ways are not like our ways. His ways are different. They're higher. And so we can't do what we think is right. We have to ask God how to do it. So I asked the person, "Do you want me to show you how to do this? Do you want me to tell you the strategy?" And they're always very eager. "Yes, I want to do this." And so I put it on the table. I'm going to move the camera just a bit so that you can see what we explained to them. So we put the block of wood there, and then we begin with one nail that we're going to lay on the table. And then we take two other nails, and we take the heads of them when we put them just across the center nail, both directions. And then we take two more nails at the other end, trying to stay away from the point, and we put those nails also, one head on one side and one on the other. The remaining nail we're going to take and put across all four of the nails, making sure that it goes between the two heads. Now, the trick is to pick up the bottom nail so that the others will catch on the nail that's on top. So sometimes, if you have really fat fingers, the best way is to get the head of the bottom nail and the point on the other end and pick it up and pick it up carefully so that all the nails hold together. Pick it up and transfer it on top of the nail that's there. And now all 6 nails are balanced on the head of this one nail. And of course, everyone in the room kind of applauds. They can't believe that we really did it and we accomplished it. The 2 old Kazakh women sitting in the back of the room absolutely got the message that what God had asked them to do was not impossible if we did it his way and according to his strategy. It's a good reminder for us that when God asks us to do something, it may seem impossible to us, but that's when we have to go to God and ask him, what's the strategy? What's the plan? How do you want us to accomplish this? God, forgive us for saying impossible. Instead, help our unbelief, help our faith, so that we will listen to what you're asking us to do, believe that you can accomplish it, and then listen for your direction. Be willing to be obedient to whatever he asked me to do to accomplish the goal and the purpose that he has. I hope that today, in whatever situation you're facing, whatever difficulty or challenge, whatever God has asked you to do, before you say it's impossible, before you give up, you'll remember with God, all things are possible. He can do anything, and he has a strategy. It's not my plan, it's not my thoughts, not my ways. It's God's. What does he want me to do? And that's what I want to do. Let's have faith today and see what he will accomplish. Amen? Let's do it.